Welcome to the YouTube recording of the June 9th, 2014 lecture for GEO503. I will go through and the PowerPoint slides for the lecture and also switch to Visual Studio and do demonstrations. I'm doing this on my own computer, which has Visual Studio 2012. This may look slightly different than what we see in class and in the lab with Visual Studio 2010. However, the functionality is very similar. I will also go through the beginning portion of these slides relatively quickly because we covered the first section of the June 9th lecture on Wednesday, June 4th. At the end of the June 4th lecture, we talked about JavaScript further, picking up from last week's lectures, and these slides indicate that. We mentioned that JavaScript is a dynamically typed programming language, not statically typed. With a static type language, a compiler checks every variable before building. C# and Visual Basic are examples of static types, and hence in those programming languages, every variable has to be declared. In JavaScript, variables are assigned at runtime and are dynamic. As we saw, there are very few variable types in JavaScript as well. Unlike a static language, variable types can actually be changed on the fly as well. We talked about the Boolean type variable as one of the few types of variables in JavaScript. Unlike C# where there are thousands, we only have a handful, not counting the ones that are defined explicitly in specific APIs like the ArcGIS API, which we'll be learning a bit later. The Boolean type variable simply indicates whether a condition is true or false. As you see on the screen here, the statement within parentheses 1925 greater than 1924 is true. So that is the type of the variable that you see true was calculated. Another type of variable in JavaScript that we talked about in class are arrays. An array in JavaScript is similar to many other languages in that it's a variable type that allows the storing of a list of values. In JavaScript, it has square brackets with values separated by commas, string values in double quotes as shown here. Unlike some languages, the values do not have to be all the same type. I purposely added a number as the fourth value here to demonstrate that. And variables are retrieved with a 0 base index. Hence in the screenshot here, Ohio is retrieved with mylist 2. New York would be 0, Pennsylvania 1, Ohio 2. We talked about in class some of the different properties and methods of an array. Review them here. We talked about them and I won't go over in detail here. Perhaps the ones that I see used the most would be join. If you need to take your list and create them into one string. Review the other, and length is one that's also often used, which gives you a number, the number of items in the array. But go through and review this list further. Another type of object that we talked about is the date object, used to handle date and time variables. There's a couple main ways to create a date variable that we talked about. An empty constructor, as pictured in number 1, will return the current time in the machine's local format. You can also provide an integer, which is the number of milliseconds starting from January 1st, 1970. We can also specify a date string, and unlike C# and other languages, JavaScript is a little more forgiving. I didn't have to define the date string pictured here, 51287, but the program was smart enough to figure that out and assign the correct date. You can also provide a date in the format of year, comma, month, comma, day, comma, hours, minutes, seconds, and milliseconds as pictured here. And during class, we went through some additional examples of how you can provide dates. There's many specific functions which we won't get into here, but they're pictured on slide 8, showing how you can retrieve and set specific aspects of a date. For example, changing just the month of the date or getting the month of the date while preserving the rest of the date. So you had a June 9th, 6:40 p.m. as your date variable and you wanted to make it July 9th. You could just set the month while preserving the rest of the date. JavaScript, although JavaScript natively does not have many languages, JavaScript does support many objects. Using a static language like C# where objects interfaces are predefined, we can both use predetermined objects such as from the Esri libraries, and you can define your own custom objects with custom attributes. We did this as an example at the end of class on the 4th. Objects can be declared with a curly brackets notation and properties added right on the fly. In the example here, I created a variable called myCounty. Notice how I declared the variable as a new object with this curly brackets, and then I simply assigned properties. There was no need to predetermine or preset these properties. I just set them on the fly as pictured here. There was no previous preparation. And now, just like that, my object, myCounty, has the 4 properties pictured on the slide. And you can see to use them later in code, I simply reference the property that I created myself. Just another syntax going back. Notice I used in this slide the object dot property syntax. This just shows that you can use syntax similar to an array with the property in single quotes enclosed in square brackets. A different syntax to get to the same thing.